So how many of you have ever been afraid of something? Raise your hand. Yeah, so that's like everybody in the room. What are some things you guys are afraid of?
Spiders.
Snakes. Spiders, snakes.
Spiders.
Anybody? Anybody else?
Homework.
Oh, you're afraid of homework.
Alan Ehler's grading.
Okay, so yeah, those are some things I came up with. Dying, loneliness, failure, spiders, public speaking. 5.3 million Americans have a social fear. And that's like fear of speaking in public or fear of eating in public. Pretty much anything that has to do with people except for agoraphobia. And 3.2 million Americans struggle with agoraphobia, and that is the fear of open spaces and crowded places. Eric mentioned one of my fears, and that is spiders. I hate spiders. I fear them. They are like the most disgusting thing ever. And this summer, I'm a nanny, and so I was going to work one day. And I'm walking up the stairs, and I take a step up the last stair to go to the door. And as I take that step, I walk through the spider web. And I shiver a little bit, but then I'm like, oh, well, I didn't see a spider in the spider web, so I just brush it off, and I go in the door, and I'm in the entryway, and I start to take off my sweater because it's cold mornings, and as I'm putting it down, I see the spider crawling up the side of my body, and my heart starts pounding, I start doing everything I can to get it off of me, and I'm screaming, and I'm like, okay, I'm good, it's gone. And I look to my left, and the dad is standing in the office with his jacket half on, looking at me, and he goes, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I just don't like spiders. He's like, okay, and he walks out the door to go to work. So I'm walking back down the hallway to the daughter's room, Helen, and I start to tell her the story about me walking through the spider web and getting a spider on me. And as I'm talking, I look at her, and her eyes are getting wider, and her mouth is starting to open. She interrupts me. She goes, Amanda, the spider is still on you! And I'm like, ah! And I scream, and I'm brushing it off, and I'm like, I take a step back because it's on the floor now, and I'm standing in the corner like this, and then the mom comes out of the bedroom, and she's like, what is going on? Why is everyone screaming? And I'm like, and Helen goes, Amanda hates spiders, and it's on the floor. So the mom comes and scoops up the spider and takes it outside. And the whole day the kids were teasing me because I freaked out hardcore over that spider. Today, if you haven't figured it out, I'm going to be talking about fear, and specifically how fear can be a stumbling block in your life and prevent you from achieving the things that God has called you to do. While I was doing some research, mostly I was trying to figure out what fear is exactly, I looked fear up in the dictionary. I know, shocker, right? And the definition I found was an unpleasant, often strong emotion caused by the anticipation or awareness of fear. So from this definition, we can kind of infer that to have the emotional reaction of fear, you have to have a previous experience with the thing that you're fearing. And for me, I had this crazy reaction to the spider, and so one could assume that somewhere in my 21 years of life, I have had a bad reaction to a spider. While I was thinking about that, I'm like, the oldest memory I've had of fearing a spider was probably when I was in 4th or 5th grade, and I was going to get dressed for bed, and I was going to get something out of the bottom left drawer of my dresser, and that's where I keep the things, that grandma sends you that are kind of ugly, and the stuff you feel like you're never going to wear again, but you want to hold on to sentimental value. And while all my friends would like Batman was really cool, and so I wanted to wear my Batman shirt to bed. That was my brother's. So I opened the drawer, I reach in, and I shake out the folded shirt, and a spider comes flying off the shirt. And I'm like, ah, and I scream, and I jump backwards up onto my bed, which is this high, and it was this really cool slate bed. And then my parents come into the room, and that's pretty much how it went from my house from that day till I graduated high school and moved out, was that when I would scream, that means there would be a spider, and my parents would come running. But I don't know exactly how that would be fearful to me. It's just a spider I found on a shirt. So I thought about maybe I'd learned it from TV and seeing other people on TV afraid of spiders. But spiders, the fear of spiders, is not exactly a fear that will hinder your lifestyle. It won't If I wake up in the morning and be like, I'm so scared of spiders, I'm not going to get out of bed today. No, that's not how I am. Like, if I see a spider on the wall, I will tend to walk away from it unless it is on my person. But there are other fears, like agoraphobia, the fear of open spaces and crowded places, can really keep a person from doing things in life. Like, if you think about it, if you had that fear, would you go to church Sunday morning? Would you ever go to a conference where there's a lot of people? And I think, as Christians, like, we really like to do those things. So to think that someone does not do that or like has fear in that would be kind of hindering to life. And while I was doing some more research on this, I came across a fear that I had never really heard of before. It was the fear of success. And the more and more I thought about it, I realized that is a legitimate fear. Like, people want to be successful. Americans define success as money and all these things, and Christians to define success, a lot of times they talk about, having more believers, getting people to know Christ. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's good. But if that's true, if that's success, why aren't we successful? Why aren't the churches filled? Why aren't, your whole friends and family coming to church? It's because we fear success. In business, there's something called the opportunity cost. And for something to happen and is successful, there has to be a reaction B that is unsuccessful. And I think as people, it's our nature to weigh those risks to the success. But we get so focused on the bad things, the things that could go wrong. We get so focused on, what if we try to share the gospel with our family and they hate us and they don't talk to us? What if our friends never want to see us again? What if we get disowned? What if we get put in the back corner of the office building because nobody at work wants to talk to us because they know everything out of our mouth will be about God? So our fears become a roadblock. Proverbs 29:25 says, fear of man will prove to be a snare, but he who trusts in the Lord will be safe. And I think, that verse says fear of man, so that's fear of other people. But I also think that your fears in general become a snare. They hold you back. But that verse gives you hope in the second part. It says, but whoever trusts in the Lord is kept safe. So how can we overcome fear? 2 Timothy 1:7 says, for God did not give us a spirit of timidity, but of love, power, and self-discipline. Okay, so you can take that first half of the verse, like everybody does, and goes, so we were not created to be fearful people. I have another verse for you. Deuteronomy 6:24 says, and the Lord our God commanded us to obey all these decrees and to fear him, so he can continue to bless us and persevere our lives, as he has done to this day. And that's from the New Living Translation, and it's, about the Israelites, and they're wandering the desert as a community, and they have all these rules and regulations that they have to obey, and they feared God, that, they had seen examples of when people disobeyed God's law, bad things would happen. So they had, a good fear, a fear that kept them doing, what they were supposed to do. And so fear necessarily isn't bad. There's healthy fear and unhealthy fear. There's healthy fear towards God, and there's unhealthy fear towards God. But we have to remember that God is our creator, and he did not, 2 Timothy 1:7 says, did not give us a spirit of fear or timidity, but of power, love, and strength. And if you are afraid of going and talking to your neighbor, pray to God to ask for his love for those people, a love so strong that you cannot help but tell them that if you walk away from a conversation and you don't tell them, that you would cry after. And I'm not saying that I am this super evangelist going out there and preaching the word, but I just encourage you to surrender your fears towards God. And I have this little video clip